A laser's curve. If you have no idea what that word means and you have been using your laser to cut pieces that snap fit together, then my friend, you are a legend. Within my very first week of owning a laser engraver, I realized that I could not just cut pieces and fit them together so easily. One piece is either slightly too large to fit into its intended opening, or the opening is just slightly larger than the piece it's supposed to accommodate. It's the most frustrating thing ever. And at the heart of my dilemma was a word which I had never heard about: Kerf. In today's video, we'll be doing a lot to spare you my experience by helping you better understand what Kerf is, showing you how to find the Kerf value for your laser engraver, and also how to input that value in LightBurn to automatically account for it during your cutting process, and even how to account for Kerf manually by tweaking your design in case you like taking matters into your own hands. So without further ado, let's dive in. A laser's curve is essentially the gap left behind after the laser cuts through a material. A curve value is necessary when cutting with a laser engraver because the laser removes material as it cuts, which affects the final dimensions of your parts. If you don't account for curve, your cuts may be slightly smaller or larger than intended, leading to problems when working with precision objects, especially for interlocking pieces, tight fit designs, and mechanical assemblies. If you're making interlocking pieces, for example puzzle parts or press fit boxes, failing to compensate for curve can result in gaps too loose or parts that don't fit too tight. If you design a part that is exactly 20 by 20 millimeters but don't account for curve, it may end up being just 19.8 or smaller because the laser burns away some of the material. Irrespective of the type of laser we are dealing with, there are certain factors which affect the curve width. These factors include the laser power, the material type, the lens focus, and finally the cutting speed, because slower cutting speeds often result in a wider curve due to the material's prolonged exposure to the laser. Now that we know what curve is and have come to the understanding that it affects all the cuts made on a laser engraver, let's discuss how to compensate for these when making our cuts. Because we have seen above that there are a couple of factors that affect curve, from material to laser speed and power, the first thing to do is to fix the parameters and conditions under which we are going to be cutting. At my end, after consulting the table of recommended cutting parameters, I went with the following. With my 5.5 watt diode laser engraver, I will be cutting a 3mm thick plywood at 200mm per minute, running at 90% power and doing 2 passes per cut. With those parameters set, we move on to determine the curve value for our laser engraver under these conditions. The curve of your laser engraver is gotten like this. You start by cutting multiple square pieces of about 20 by 20 millimeters from your intended material. You measure all the dimensions of the actual cut piece with a caliper. You subtract the measured dimensions from the original design dimensions for all the squares, then divide by 2 to get the curve width. The reason why we are doing this for multiple squares is because taking an average curve value is how to get the best possible value. The more test pieces you use, the more curve widths you have to take an average, and the more accurate your final result will be. Just to make sure I'm on track, I asked ChatGPT the normal range of curve values of a 5.5 watt diode laser engraver and got this, which I found quite reassuring before carrying on. The next step is applying your curve offset, which can go in one of two ways, either by simply going to your software and keying in the curve value, or by using the curve value to make changes directly to your design to compensate for the curve. But to show the problem we are trying to avoid, I did one without making any changes to compensate for the curve. And as expected, the fit was no good. The space was just slightly wider than the piece it was receiving, a common problem which renders your cuts useless. Now that we have highlighted the problem here, let us see how the curve value would help us fix this. The first method is definitely the easier one, especially if you're using LightBurn, which has the curve value option in the cut and layers parameters. Accessible in my version by double-clicking on the layer of interest and simply inputting your curve value where it says curve. Save your settings and hit start. And now the moment of truth. As we can see, it doesn't slide in easily because we aren't dealing with such levels of precision, but it snaps and fits tightly as intended. The second method is mainly for those who have a certain level of control over their design or who are working with a software like LaserGRBL, which has no curve value parameter that I know of. To do this, we use the offset feature found in most vector editing softwares. This feature is common to both vector editing softwares like Inkscape and also present in the Sketch tab of 3D modeling softwares like Fusion 360. It simply allows you to offset the outline of your design inwards or outwards at particular areas to compensate for the laser's curve width. After applying these offsets, I imported the design into LightBurn and hit start. It ran smoothly, and when it was time to test them, they fit so well, even better than the one made by inputting the curve value in LightBurn. Pretty satisfying, to be honest. So as a recap, not accounting for curve equals a waste of your time. Finding your laser's curve and allowing LightBurn handle it for you is a good strategy. Also, manually tweaking your design using the offset feature is a good way to go to avoid the problems that come with not compensating for curve. I really do hope this video was helpful. If yes, please give it a like and subscribe. I haven't been documenting my laser journey much lately, but that will be changing as I will be making more interesting laser videos in the future. So please subscribe and stay tuned for those. It's been your boy Clovered, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye bye.